Report. And now, here is your host, Leon Charney.
Welcome to another Leon Charney Report. And it's been a troubling week for us because we lost one of our very, very good friends, Eric Breindel, the New York Post editorial writer and then vice president, frequent commentator on this show, came on many times, and as a tribute to him, stay tuned. The last segment of the show is a dedication to Eric and his parents, who I know watch the show all the time. And it's really our last interview with Eric, and he ran around the world and told us his feelings. I think it's an extraordinary interview. So my condolences to the family, and let his memory serve us all well. We have a new fellow, really, from the Council on Foreign Relations. We have Jonathan Paris with us, who's a man who studies the Middle East at the Council on Foreign Relations. And anybody studying the Middle East should really have gray hair, but he doesn't. So we're going to find out why. And on top of that, he's an expert on Indonesia. So if you can muddle those two together, you can get him to work out your bankruptcies if your bank is watching, and I'm sure you are. And he'll figure out what happened in Oslo, why the peace process is stalled. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Thank you, Leon.
Did you know Eric Breindel also?
I did. I just saw him a few weeks ago at the council. And,
it's amazing how this fella has touched everybody.
Yes.
And you go through a cross of life. It's from Henry Kissinger to Al D'Amato to Moynihan to Giuliani to Como. I know he was very close with Como. It's amazing. I mean,
he worked with Moynihan for a few years.
Yeah.
I read the obituary. I didn't realize he went to Harvard Law School and never practiced law. He went right into foreign policy and journalism.
Went to London School of Economics also.
Right.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. Young man. Terrible. Anyway, let's uplift the show and talk about the Middle East. How's that?
Okay.
Can that help us?
I don't know how uplifting I can be.
Well, we're going to bring on a filmmaker later who's done a new film. It's premiering, or did premiere this week, called The Dybbuk. Maybe they will up.
Okay.
We got to get the swings up here. In any case, you really got involved with the Middle East in terms of teaching and getting involved with, let's say, the intellectual aspects after the Oslo Agreement.
I would say I got involved intellectually when I was bar mitzvahed in Tel Aviv.
Really?
1966. My parents really pushed Zionism. As you know from my background in Cleveland, come from a very pro-Israel community.
Right.
And I remember debating with my brother at the age of 13, Nasser and whether Pan-Arabism would unify the Arabs and destroy Israel. And then immediately when I came back from my bar mitzvah, we had the Six-Day War. So I became somewhat of an expert at a young age.
All right. Who were the main generals in the Israeli army during the Six-Day War?
Well, my favorite general was Avram Yofi, because he came after the war to do some fundraising in Cleveland, and he gave me a knife.
Who captured Jericho for the Israelis?
Oh, was it Gur?
No, it was Uri Ben Ari. And Gur captured Jerusalem. He was the defender.
I figured Jerusalem's near Jericho. Maybe he did both.
No,
I don't match you, Leon.
No, I'm kidding. It's an amazing thing how we're going to talk about that now, and with the people who have done the Dybbuk, the transformation of Israel. If you were in Israel during the Six-Day War, or
right before and then after in 60.
It's unbelievable. I mean, everybody thought they were the conquerors of the world in Israel. Everybody thought that. Well, they didn't think ahead. I know Moshe Dayan always said that, look, we can't be a conquered. We can't be a conqueror. We can't administer these territories. We really have to give it back. But Israel was so high after the Six-Day War; it would be impossible to do that.
A lot of people, and I saw an editorial on Haaretz comparing the period right up to '73 to the period now.
That's right. There was a big downfall that in 1973.
The illusion.
The Yom Kippur War, the war of attrition.
Yeah, the illusion that you don't have to negotiate, that you could just sit tight. And you hear that similar kind of mood is prevalent under the current government.
Okay, what's the status today? What's going on?
Well, my read is that we had three significant events in the modern Arab-Israeli sphere. One you were very much a part of was Sadat's visit and the Camp David Accords. Two was the Oslo Accord. And I think now we should recognize we are on a third major transformation backwards, and that is the decision of the Likud government not to carry out the implicit promise and premise of Oslo, which is that there would be a viable Palestinian state at the end of the road.
All right, so if a scale of 1 to 10, Bibi Netanyahu gets how much?
Well, I don't want to just pick on Bibi because I know who we're talking to right now, and there are a lot of people on your show, like my mother, who really like what Bibi's doing.
No, but
I would say on a 1 to 10, I would give him a 2.
2? That's a pretty low grade. I got news for you. Well, he took a smashing defeat this week, and I have to always disclose that Ezer Weitzman is a very close friend of mine and probably one of my best, and he was reelected as president of Israel for his second term. Now, unfortunately for Bibi Netanyahu, he made a very bad strategic and tactical mistake by putting up a man named Shaul Amor, who's a nice man, to run against Weitzman. Never in the history of Israel has an incumbent president been challenged. It's usually a unifying fact that you bring the country together, they all say, well, he's done a great job. After all, Weitzman had a popularity of about 86% in the polls. Bibi didn't listen to his advisors, including Ruby Rivlin, including Don Meridor. People told him not to do that. It was not a wise decision. And he went ahead and he did it. And it's a break in his coalition because 8 members of Likud, Ehud Olmert, who saw me 2 weeks ago, said, I don't care what Bibi tells me, I'm voting for Ezer Weitzman. And as many of you know, Weitzman won 63 to 49. And Ehud Barak, who's the leader of the Labor Party, declared that a huge victory, and it was a big political victory. Now, I said to Weitzman when I spoke to him, I said, you know, it doesn't bother me about what Bibi did because I think it's a wrong political judgment. But if that's how bad his judgment is now, what happens when you get to big items? And I think, and it's not a criticism per se of Netanyahu as a person, it's just a question of political judgments. And if you give him a 2, he's not getting these stars. What should he do, though?
Well, I don't really have a strong feeling on the Weitzman thing, but I think this is a symptomatic, this has happened over and over again, bad judgment.
Right.
Followed by survival.
Your mother's not going to love the show today.
Well, I can't always please her, but
That's true.
You've asked me to tell me what I think, not what my mother wants me to say.
I agree.
And what I think is that somehow he has been inoculated by all these previous miscues, including that legal damage with respect to that appointment of the Attorney General.
Baron affair.
And he seems to every time survive. There was, when I was at the Doha summit, we couldn't get the Israeli delegation to sign off on the Doha summit declaration because there was a revolt within the Likud by Rani Milo, and they were preoccupied in Jerusalem with the revolt. Everybody thought maybe this would be the end, but he always seems to survive. So he's like the Teflon, Reagan's first term, the Teflon president.
Well, there's a lot of talk now that Shimon Peres, I announced it on the show, may run as an independent for prime minister. I don't know if you've heard that. Rani Milo may make a stab at it. Anyone who collects 50,000 signatures can run for prime minister. But I have another take, which I've said many times, I'm not with you because it's the first time that you've been with us on the show. I think the Oslo Accords were made bad. They weren't done well. When I visited Arafat secretly, and I really opened up some doors, and Weitzman had sent me over there. When I went back to Yitzhak Rabin, may rest in peace, told him that he should, or could deal with Arafat, not should, but could, he dismissed it totally. He didn't want to recognize the PLO as an entity, and he just wanted to go away. He said he has no power, he has no ability, and tra-la-la-la. My theory has always been that Rabin should have recognized Arafat immediately, and the same day Arafat should concomitantly have taken away all the covenants against the destruction of Israel, so there'd be no excuses. Then the two of them should have gone to Geneva or Oslo or Zurich, where this producer is, and sat and tried to come up with a scheme. It may have taken 5 or 10 years, but in order to get a successful operation in the Palestinian National Authority, you need an economic basis.
Yeah.
and there was no economic basis. So what you were doing was handing Gaza back, and I went down to Gaza in those days. It was terrible. I mean, Arafat was sitting there with cellular phones. I mean, they didn't have a phone system. So the whole deal wasn't set up, in my opinion, correctly. The concept is good, but I think the negotiation could have saved a lot of lives that would have done outside the context of that. And, you know, Arafat still has not eliminated the covenant against the destruction of Israel.
I think I agree with you that, because you say the spirit or the concept of Oslo made sense. It's just that the tactics and the way it was carried out. By the way, one comment on the economics, the donor fund of, what was it, $5 billion that was
it all
pledged.
got lost somehow in the pockets of a lot of Arabs over there.
Well, not only, it got lost in the World Bank bureaucracy, because they had this sort of preliminary plans and plans of plans and technical feasibility plans that were alien to the way the Palestinians do business. This is sort of like the IMF in Indonesia, if I could interject.
Yeah, I want you to interject. We know Bibi has a 2 from you on his credit rating, so to speak, or his approval rating in Israel. Now, you're an expert on Indonesia. You practiced Indonesian law, and there's no comparison between the Middle East and Indonesia, unless you can find it for me.
I can compare the Palestinian...
Bad management?
Palestinian state building. They're building a state from scratch with the Indonesians, who have had 50 years, but their institutions are very weak. They're ruled by a strong man. They call it Bapak. Mr. Suharto and Arafat, very similar. They rule by their charisma and their wiliness and their ambiguity and duplicitousness, you know, their lack of being direct. I won't remove the covenants right away. I won't sign up with the IMF A to Z. They do it, but then they don't do it. You know, they're very similar.
All right, Jonathan, we've got about a minute. I want you to tell me what the Council of Foreign Relations is predicting on the Middle East right now, or if you have an idea of what they think will happen.
The Council doesn't have its own political view, but I have my own personal view, which is that I think we are going to see a deterioration in Israel's role in the region vis-a-vis the Arab countries. And I'm talking about the Tunisia, Morocco, Qatar, Oman, where Israel had sort of started building relations.
After Rabin signed with Arafat and Jordan, there was a tremendous relationship between those Arab countries.
Right. And now Jordan will come back, because Jordan has no strategic choice unless they want to go back to Saddam.
Right.
But other than Jordan, I think you're going to see deterioration, and I don't know if we're going to have another MENA economic summit like we had in Casablanca and the next 3 years. And those were great opportunities to get large numbers of Arabs and Israelis together.
All right, one last question. I know you have to run. Would a unity government help in Israel today?
Would a unity government help? I don't think it's worth thinking about, because it's not going to happen. Just the internal politics.
We found an honest man who can discuss the Middle East very appropriately, and I want, as he said, many people watch this show. No one is here Bibi bashing. We're trying to lay out what we think is the political reality of the Middle East at this point. And right now, it's not very successful. Bibi Netanyahu has just completed a visit to Europe, and he was not well received. I mean, no matter what you read in the newspapers and this conversation that comes out diplomatically, it was tough and effective, and it's not what it's meant out to be. He was pretty well isolated out there, and it's very dangerous for the country. We'll be back with a happy topic called the Dybbuk, and we'll bring you the leading actress and the producer. Don't leave us. We're back. First time appearance by Ayelet Z'urer. I can't pronounce it correctly. Anyway, she's the leading actress in a film called The Dybbuk, which I understand is the largest monetary production ever in the history of the State of Israel. Is that correct, Ayelet?
Well, I don't really know the figures, but that's the rumor.
All right, we had last week on our show from the Israeli Film Festival, Avital, her name was, she did a film, Jenny. We had Don Turgeman, I call him Turgeman, Asi Dayan, you heard of him?
Yeah, of course.
And the fellow who did Afula Express. And we had a very intense discussion about what was going on with Judaism and Israel today, between the Haredim, which is the ultra-Orthodox, and the secular Jews. And we got some really interesting comments. one of the reasons that the Dybbuk is very interesting to me is because it attacks this problem. Is that correct or incorrect?
Well, it doesn't attack this problem
All right,
necessarily.
tell us about the story right now, the Dybbuk.
The Dybbuk is an old story about a young man who's coming from not the Orthodox world into the Orthodox world, and he's falling in love with a very religious girl, and they're not allowed to be together, and so with a lot of fights with her father and this certain society, worse come to worse. I can't really tell you the story because, you know.
Why not?
Well, it's a sad end, and
really,
you know,
you don't want to be sad?
No, I don't want people to know the end. So it's, you know, it's.
Where was it shot? You couldn't shoot that in Mea Sharim, which is the ultra-Orthodox section of Jerusalem. They wouldn't let you shoot film there.
It's impossible to shoot there.
Right.
You can go to one of the places around, which looks quite the same, but not necessarily.
Who's the leading male actor in the?
Yehezkel Lazarov.
And what is Orna Parat's very famous actress? Mm-hmm. She's also in the film. What does she do?
She's playing this girl's grandmother. Very Orthodox, again, very religious woman who takes care of her and her father.
Is this your first major film?
Yes, it is.
And what did you do before you made major films? You did small films.
I did small films, TV, and mainly theater in Israel and New York, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
What did you do? Where'd you work in Israel? Which theater?
The Khan, Jerusalem.
Khan.
Yeah.
Are you from Jerusalem originally?
No, originally I'm from Tel Aviv.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you like what's going on in Israel today? I mean, you have an opinion.
I do. I have a lot of opinions. It's sometimes.
Let's hear them. I'm here all night, so talk.
Well, for a young, I'll tell you my opinion from my point of view. It's not very political. It's more from the society point of view.
Socialist.
Socialist, yeah. There are a lot of young people like me who are very international oriented, meaning we see TV, there's channel, you can see all over cable TV, right. You can see whatever you choose to see from all over the world, and they are very open-minded, the young people right. of my generation,
right.
and I see from what you actually driving.
No, what I want to do is I want to get a feel to the American people as to really what's going on in Israel. I said it last week that we don't want propaganda from the B'nai B'rith or from the Jewish Agency.
Yeah.
Asi Dayan and Turgaman, everybody got into it. And basically what they wound up was saying, look, if you give me my rights, I don't mind if there's religion in the state. But if you take away my rights, then I think we have a terrific conflict here. And the scary part is, and I don't know how much you follow, but the ultra-Orthodox have a very severe influence right now. I mean, I don't think that your picture with this film could be shown in many places. I mean, they're trying to curtail that. On the other hand, we don't want to see a backlash from the Israeli secularists against the Haredim or the ultra-Orthodox. So there has to be a balance someplace. And you don't like to talk politics, but in Israel everything is evolving and is into politics.
It seems this way when you are, it's very strange because when I'm coming to places like this, it seems like the only thing happening in Israel is politics, war, people who are talking about against very religious people, and there are so many other things happening, actually. Right. There's a lot of art going on, and right. TV, and little films, but very nice things happening. And young people like me who are doing very special things, and in the art world, I mean. So not everything is necessarily when you live in Tel Aviv, it's not too...
You have a daily life. I mean, you go to work,
exactly.
You go to school, you go to plays. Theaters are packed in Israel.
Packed.
Concerts are packed in Israel.
Yeah.
Movies are packed in Israel. True. Everybody goes out. They're sitting in cafes.
Films, American films.
Things are going on and all that. But I'll tell you what's hitting Israel. Tourism is down.
Tourism's
economics are starting to be a little bit wobbly because of it's too small a country. Everybody has to be involved. I mean, if I sat in Cafe Apropos and I had a bomb there a year and a half ago, it'd be horrible.
Well, funny enough, I pass by and people are sitting there.
I understand.
Without any fear, and nothing really changed.
I've been back there. I sat there.
So.
And Shankar Street is still hopping. Shankar Street is like the village. Yeah, it's really hot. And so there on a Friday afternoon, my producer would fall out of his bed to see those women there. I mean, it's a lively, exciting country, and no one denies it. What people want to understand is, and you're right, what we read here is the divide. Everything is about the divide.
It's incredible. It's when I come here and visit my friends, because I've been living here for a while, it's incredible. They think it's a war zone.
Right, right.
It's not.
It's good to hear. All right, let's bring on Rudiger Findeisen, who's produced this play, and we'll cut for 1 minute, and then we'll come right back. And he's from Switzerland, not Jewish, and he produced this great, not play, it's a movie in Israel. Terrific. Let's see what's going on with him. We'll be right back. We're back. We're talking with Ayelet Z'urer. I can't pronounce her name. Doesn't matter. All you have to do is look at her face and call her Ayelet, and she's happy, and she's beautiful, and she has no problems, and she's upset that she didn't explain the film correctly, but we'll talk about that. And Rudiger Findeisen, who has produced a film of $5 million, not shekel in Israel. It's pretty big.
May I correct you, Leon?
Sure, anytime.
Just one of the producers.
One of the producers.
Yeah,
Who the rest?
It's a Swiss, Israeli, German co-production, so every country has a producer, co-producer.
And were funds that put this money together
yes,
too?
Of course.
Yeah.
The major part came from Germany, of course.
Is this your major occupation, producing film?
I'm going to produce movies. I started as a director of photography years ago. I'm in the business for 35 years.
You don't look that old.
I'm 40 something.
Really? You started as a teenager. You had a... I don't know. I can't figure this whole thing out. What do you want to tell me about the Dybbuk that you missed, Ayelet?
I think I'll skip it. Because once it's such a well-known story amongst the Jewish society.
Right.
And whoever, it's really more like a Romeo and Juliet story combined with Kabbalah, and I think something around that. And
yes.
You know what Kabbalah is, Roger?
Well, that's a good question. When I started this movie 2 years ago...
We try to ask very good questions on the show. It's hard to know, you know?
I remember, yeah.
We try.
Yeah.
Kabbalah is mysticism,
this
basically.
Project, 2 years ago, I
Jews
didn't know
mysticism.
nothing about
Really?
Kabbalah, Judaism. I even was not in Israel at that time. But I immediately fell in love with the story. As Ayelet said, it's a Romeo and Juliet story based in modern times, Jerusalem.
Right.
We couldn't shoot that.
I knew that he will tell the story better than I.
No. I mean, it's your part. But when I have to pitch buyers, I say, listen, you just have 10 seconds at a market, at a festival, to pitch a buyer.
Right.
What do you say?
Have you brought us out yet to any film festivals?
Yes, we were in. Of course, we won five Oscars, Israeli Oscars. Last year, and we went to Berlin International Film Festival in the special section of the Panorama.
You have a great German actress in there, Ona Parat. We spoke about her before.
Yes, and don't forget Moshe Ivki.
Moshe Ivki's great.
And don't say German. I think she wouldn't like it.
No, we talked about it. We had her on a show. She a fascinating story with Ona Parat. She's not Jewish. She emigrated to Israel, married a member of the Mossad, who unfortunately passed away about 1.5 years or 2 years ago. And she's like nearly the first lady of acting in Israel.
That's right. And funny enough, I'm not Jewish as well.
Oh, it's not so funny. I looked at you right away. I saw it. But did you enjoy working in Israel?
Yes. There are beautiful girls around and well experienced,
smart,
well experienced and talented filmmakers. Above all, our director, I would say, Yossi Sommer.
How many shooting days did it take?
Don't ask that question. 30? Around?
No.
Did they go over
about
budget?
2 months.
No, you don't know.
About 2 months.
Did they go over budget? Did you go over budget?
Don't ask me. not my pocket.
Slightly.
I know a lot about this. I acted in a film in the 70s with.
The film is not perfect without going over budget.
You have to go over budget.
Yes, because you cut the budget.
Has it opened in Israel yet?
No, not yet.
No,
Probably
we
the end
are
of
going,
April, May, something.
I would
like
say
that.
May. And we are in discussions with US distributors, and we will have
HBO, Showtime, all that.
first we are going for theatrical release, and video. You know all the things, theatrical video.
I told Ayelet, Full Monty, which is a big hit, you know, this English film.
Yeah.
The production cost, or the movie was born at $3.5 million, and it will gross up to this day, today. I don't know about 7 o'clock box office, but at 6 o'clock, it had $270 million in gross receipts.
It happens sometimes.
It's amazing. 57 times return on money.
Yeah, that's
So
nice.
maybe this will happen with your film.
I hope so, but you know, all figures must match. You must have the right time, the right slot, the right partners, the right persons, and so on.
Well, your theme is unbelievable now. I mean, that's a big theme in the world, and Israel today is the conflict between the Orthodoxy and non-Orthodoxy, and it's a love story combined with this problem.
Yes.
And
Combined with this problem and combined with the, don't forget the mysticism, which I think it's beautiful. It's very, it's done beautifully. The way they combine, the director combined everything, it's really...
You know, Madonna is starting Kabbalah, and Roseanne, and all these.
yeah, they
people.
all
I
study
mean,
Kabbalah. What does that tell you for Kabbalah?
What I want to do, Leon, is to encourage your audience to go into the cinema, to see, to watch, to screen foreign language movies. It's worthwhile to do it.
All foreign
because
language movies.
Yes, because
That's a good idea.
They can learn a lot, and I think that's what especially the people in Israel should do. Listen to each other, the Orthodox, the non-religious, the politics, the filmmakers, all. They should listen to each other. That's what I learned
In Israel?
in Israel.
Would you know?
They talk together,
Would you do
but-
another film in Israel?
Yes, we are in discussions, and myself.
It's a good place
I
to
did-
film.
Yeah.
Ayala, we got to cut out of here soon. What's in the future?
Well, there's a movie coming up probably.
In Israeli?
French, Israeli and French co-production. And
You will learn it after 25 years.
and that's hopefully will happen
The
very
big
soon.
question to you.
Yeah.
Did you start to study the Kabbalah after you read this Dybbuk?
I know, I'm familiar with the Kabbalah before.
So are you still into it?
It's like, you know, it's really funny to speak about it this way because it's not really a very, it's not about fashion for me.
No, but it's
So I know it's very
many
fashionable
people
to
have
go and
they
really,
have groups and that's right. It's a whole that you can go to group readings like every week and then study the Kabbalah. And so you're not doing it for fashion.
No.
You're a true intellectual person
I
who
am.
wants to get into
Funny enough,
philosophy.
huh?
I found it out. Nice to see you, Ayelet. Good luck with your
Thank you very
Dybbuk.
much.
Roger, pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll see you in Zurich.
Yes.
Do they have good theaters there now in Zurich?
What me?
Do they have nice film? I mean theaters.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah?
Yeah. We show a lot
Cineplex?
of foreign-
Cineplex? Oh.
Yeah,
Really?
sure. We are in Europe.
Try to get the rights for Titanic. As I said at the opening of the show, we are going to play a tribute to Eric Breindel, who is a frequent commentator on the show, a good friend. And most of all, we send our sincerest sympathies to the parents who I know are watching or watch our show. And we'll let Eric's word speak for himself. May his memory be a memory for all of us for peace and love as he had for all his friends and people that were close to him. Welcome to another Leon Charney Report. What's going on in the world today is basically the Middle East and New York City. Al Sharpton and Ruth Messenger. Who better to bring on than Eric Breindel, who's got his own TV show on Sundays, Fox News Sunday. Am I correct, Eric?
Fox News Channel on Sundays at 12 p.m.
12 p.m.
The show's called actually Fox News Watch.
Fox News Watch. Still writing editorials for the New York Post, where many of you know him.
Column, actually.
And column, and no more editorial?
What's in editorials? No, most of my work is News Corp and the corporate
Vice President
realm.
of News Corp for Rupert Murdoch.
That's correct.
Just returned from Israel.
That's correct, too.
Last week, Abba Eben on this show said, in his memory, there has never been a darker time for the country than now. You agree?
No, I defer to Abba Evan on the history of the Jewish state. He played an important role in bringing it into being. He was more
Very
than
important.
present at the creation, to use Dean Acheson's phrase, but I can't see how you could possibly say that. I mean, Israel, for the first time, is at peace with at least one of its neighbors, its primary neighbor, the most serious military threat, Egypt. Secondly, Israel's economy is a first world economy. It's a boom economy. Israeli high-tech, Israeli pharmaceuticals are competing on an equal basis with produce in the rest of the world. You know, we had a long period where the world needed oil, Israel didn't have any. Prior to that, the world needed coal, Israel didn't have coal. Right now, the turning point is high-tech, the information superhighway, and there's not many countries that can compete with Israel.
Israel-
And Israel, in fact, could be in the forefront of the Eastern Hemisphere.
The GMP in Israel is one of the best in the world. I think third or fourth. It's terrific.
We
And
have,
high-tech is
that Israel
terrific.
has security problems, Leon. You know more about than I do. I don't need to remind you. I mean, the terrorism last week, when I arrived in the country, the incident with the commando unit in Lebanon had just taken place. The bombings in Jerusalem had taken place. The problems are very real. The Oslo process is very murky. But to call this the darkest hour, I mean,
A lot of people are doing it, though, Eric. I've heard from a lot of people. I don't want to seem that way. I want to get some hope from you and make our people who watch us feel a little bit better.
I'd like to give you some hope.
You
because,
met with the Prime Minister,
did, yes.
and is he upbeat?
I think he's upbeat in the sense that he's a realist and that he sees that the siege is over. He had just returned from China, where he made major economic agreements and Japan and South Korea,
Right.
and raised with them and got, he believes, positive responses with regard to the sale of sophisticated weaponry to Iraq and Iran. Now, Leon, you and I know how preposterous the notion of the Prime Minister of the State of Israel going to China at all would have been, say, 2 decades ago, let alone coming back with economic agreements from Japan and South Korea and
You know
China.
who opened up China?
Well, Eisenberg.
Ezer Weizmann and Menachem Begin.
Ezer Weizmann and Menachem Begin opened up the diplomatic...
No, they sent Eisenberg. Eisenberg was an industrialist who's just passed away. He was sent
Yes, you're right.
as a commissioner, so to speak, for the Israelis to open up China.
And I wouldn't say it's fully open. I don't think, you know, Americans aren't going to make money in China for a long time. The point really is that Israel is functioning for the first time like a normal country, a normal, sophisticated first world country with problems, real security problems, a tense relationship with Washington, but nevertheless, it's not a question of light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, this is a country that's thriving.
All right, Madeleine Albright went very unsuccessly, she claims, to the Middle East. She didn't achieve much.
No, she didn't, did she?
No, that's what she says. What do you think? Well,
No, I don't think
she's
she
the best
achieved.
evidence, right?
Yeah, I don't think she achieved much either. I was kind of curious about the trip because had the good fortune of seeing the Prime Minister the evening before her arrival, and there was the expectation created by her and her staff that she was going to do some tough talking and that Israel was going to get a lecture from her. Lo and behold, she came to Jerusalem. She went to Yad Vashem and paid her respects. She said nothing can happen without security first for the people of Israel. And she went to the hospital to visit victims of the recent terror attacks. And there was a lot of surprise in Israel and in government circles, and I might add grateful surprise. Promptly, she travels across the bridge, meets with Arafat, and the world hears from Madeleine Albright that Israel has to stop expanding settlements. Israel has to make unilateral concessions. Israel has to restart the Oslo process. And, you know, she had just been in Israel, and she hadn't even asked the government of Israel whether it would do such things. I mean, it's...
So what do you think?
Well, I think that if you wanted to design a trip in which the result would be utter failure, it's hard to do a better job. She then stopped off in Damascus, and Leon, as you and I remember, Warren Christopher visited Damascus about 30 times during his sad 4 years in the White House and accomplished nothing. I would think he went to Paris 3 times during that period, by the way. I would think Madeleine Albright, who's a historian, a political scientist, would look at that and say, there's a mistake I don't want to repeat. Yet there she was sitting at Hafiz Assad's feet and all celebrating the fact that the only thing that happened is he didn't make her wait.
But Eric, we understand that Madeleine Albright has a boss called President William Jefferson Clinton, and he does other things in his life other than defend Paula Jones lawsuits.
He does.
We got to believe that this thing, if your assumption is correct, that this is a pre-planned, in a sense, do-nothing trip to get nothing done. This came directly from the White House. This does not come from Madeleine Albright.
Well, I'll tell you,
so
Leon,
what's the White House trying to do?
I have a complicated view on that, and let me just try it out with you and see what you think. I wonder if the president, well, any president with domestic difficulties looks overseas for quick successes, and the Middle East is where their eyes trained first. I kind of wonder whether people like Dennis Ross and now Madeleine Albright haven't so much invested in the so-called peace process that they, for their own sake, want to keep it going. I think when push comes to shove and President Clinton is asked to choose between putting pressure on Israel and taking the alternative path, which is for him locally, domestically better politics, and internationally maybe a reflection of where his heart and Vice President Gore's heart is, he won't, in the end, choose not to put pressure on Israel. In other words, I'm not all that sure that now the Albright-Ross strategy has a stamp of approval that's unimpeachable.
Moskowitz, this doctor from Florida who's bought some land in the Arab territories and has confronted the Israeli
East Jerusalem,
East Jerusalem, and he's confronted Netanyahu's government with this, and it's a problem. I understand they worked out a temporary solution yesterday. Do you know much about it?
Yeah, they have a tentative solution, and the tentative solution, as I understand it, is that there's going to be an acknowledgement by the government of Israel that he, Moskowitz, is the legitimate owner of the property in question, and that for the moment, in deference, particularly to American sensibilities, the people who moved in there will move out, and that at a subsequent juncture, an effort to deal appropriately in the context of final status talks with buildings like his will take place. So it's sort of like cutting the baby in half. It's probably going to be acceptable, but Leon, this is East Jerusalem. East Jerusalem has been a part of the State of Israel since the end of June 1967. East Jerusalem is not, whether you call it the West Bank or Judea and Samaria. East Jerusalem is part of the capital city of Israel. And if anybody concludes from this that the Prime Minister views East Jerusalem as Arab territory, they're making a serious error. This is a gesture toward Madeleine Albright's needs.
But don't you think the right wing in his party or in his coalition can read this as some kind of backing off? Exactly what you say. Here's a Jewish man who bought a piece of real estate in Jerusalem and he can't build on it. And Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, says, you know what, I have to work out a compromise with you because I'm under tremendous pressure. What will the right-wing factions of his government say?
Well, the right-wing factions in Israel have a lot of complaints about Bibi Netanyahu, which may surprise the rest of the world, which seems to think that he's the instrument that intends to destroy Oslo. But the fact is that they're not going to get any better because the bottom line is whatever the elites say. I discovered the people on the ground think Bibi Netanyahu has Israel's security firmly at his heart and in his hand.
Any chance of a unity government now?
I think that there's the prospect of a unity government is always on the table in Israel. The real question is, if you try to form one, who from labor would take part? Shimon Peres, as far as I can tell, does not accept the fact that he and Labor Party politics are over.
Is that right?
And Ehud Barak, as you know, is not at this juncture, and I had a chance to meet with him in Israel. It was at the headquarters of the Labor Party. He turns out he hadn't been able to visit there for several weeks because he was so unpopular, because he tried to do something we in America call downsizing, and he let a few people go. So he couldn't show his head there. National unity government that adheres to the principles that the Prime Minister regards as basic is always on the table.
Did you discuss this with Barak?
National unity? Barak prefers not to, and as a consequence, we discussed his security vision. And I had to tell you, I came out of
the same, right?
I came out of the meeting thinking that the differences,
They're clones.
the differences are not profound. Differences between Shimon Peres and Netanyahu are profound.
All right, we cut for a break. We'll come right back with Eric Breindel. We'll talk about some New York politics. Are you excited about having a mayor in the city who doesn't pay taxes?
I wouldn't be thrilled. I don't think we're actually going to have to face the conundrum, because Al Sharpton, as we speak, has learned that he did not, although he came surprisingly near, he did not force a runoff. Ruth Messenger's final vote is over 40%. Sharpton's federal court appeal notwithstanding, I think we're going to see that a runoff doesn't have to take place. And
How do you get so close, though, Eric? How did Sharpton get so close to a mainstream candidate like Ruth Messenger?
Because she's not that mainstream, and because the rest of New York City is increasingly mainstream, and because most people in the city, Democrat or Republican, intend to vote for Rudy Giuliani in November because they think he's doing a good job. The turnout was preposterously low. Sharpton gets 125,000 votes when he puts his name on the ballot. He's 3 primaries in a row. He's gotten almost the exact same vote total. This time, it was almost enough to place him in a runoff because the turnout was virtually non-existent. And that, I think, is a phenomenon of Giuliani's abilities and Messenger's ridiculous candidacy.
You think Giuliani played a hand in the Democratic turnout? Or you mean he's just so powerful?
I think he's so popular. I think that there are a lot of people who said, what difference does it make who the Democratic nominee is? I'm a registered Democrat. I'm going to vote for Giuliani. Why should I take an hour off from work to vote for Messenger in order then to be able to vote for Giuliani over her? You know, Ruth Messenger during the last 9 days, though, I think did one important thing. She told the people of the city of New York that she would back Al Sharpton over Rudy Giuliani, were that to be the race, the contest in November. She tried very hard not to say it clearly. She said, I'm going to support the winner of the Democratic runoff, which I expect to be me. Or let's not talk about anybody else's qualifications because mine are the best. In the last analysis, she said she'd support the winner of the Democratic runoff. Alan Hevesy, for example, took the opposite position, said clearly and plainly what she was afraid to say. He said, I cannot, in good conscience, say I'll support Al Sharpton. Ruth Messenger, on the other hand, said she'd support the Democratic nominee.
Well, Hevesy's also on a liberal line with Giuliani, by the way.
Well, yes, but on the other hand, he's a Democrat.
He made a definite statement.
And he made a definite statement. She tried to duck, but she made her position plain. So what we now have after 9 days, runoff or no runoff, is New Yorkers needing to ask themselves a serious question. In good conscience, can they cast their ballots for somebody who says that they would have voted for Ruth Messenger, for Al Sharpton over Rudy Giuliani, were that the mayoral contest? Ruth Messenger is such a candidate, and I think people have to decide on a right and wrong basis whether or not that, in good conscience, is something they can do.
So is it fair to say that Eric Breindel tonight on the Leon Charney Report predicts that Rudy Giuliani would be the next mayor of New York?
I'm pretty comfortable with that. I thought you were going to, if you want to ask me something a lot more challenging, it would be how big his vote margin is going to be. And
What's the black community, political community, saying about Al Sharpton? The mainstream types like Charlie Rangel and Denny Farrell, and what are they saying about this Sharpton phenomenon? I'm sure that they're no more pleased than Ruth Messenger or Hevesy is.
some aren't. Charlie Rangel, of course, was bobbing and weaving, as is his wont. He endorsed Messenger. Then when Sharpton seemed to force a runoff, Rangel said he was reconsidering. Dinkins stood with Messenger throughout. My understanding is that in the last couple of days, a major effort was taken to persuade Sharpton to accept the Board of Elections result, not go to court, not appeal. And obviously, even though the people involved were David Dinkins and, to my understanding, even Percy Sutton, who some people consider the most powerful black establishment politician, Sharpton said, no way. Now, if you really look hard, you got to figure Sharpton said, what's in it for me? And he would have said, when Freddie Ferrer dropped out, Ms. Messenger made him titular co-chairman of the campaign. She going to offer that to me?
He's right.
And my guess is Ruth Messenger, spine not being her strong suit, was unable to make up her mind or simply said no. And as a consequence, Sharpton said, I'm not getting anything. If that's the case, I'm going to court. And indeed he did.
What has happened to the Democratic Party? Why is the best thing that they could present an Al Sharpton, Sal Albanese, or Ruth Messenger contest?
You often, well, you know, that's the right question. I mean, you often have that when you have a strong opponent. Nobody wants to come forward. Mario Cuomo, a Democrat, a liberal Democrat, coasted in 1990 because Republicans didn't want to take him on. You could argue that that's the case. I think you're pointing to something deeper and more realistic, which is there isn't a Democratic Party in New York. There are a handful of individual personalities with considerable appeal. They don't go to the Democratic State Committee, to Judith Hope. They go there, contributors, they raise money, campaign on their own, and the fact is the people who we know will turn out in Democratic primaries are the hard left. They dominate the organized party, and they're vastly out of sync with where the National Democratic Party is, where Bill Clinton is, and for that matter, where the American people are. I mean, America, in several states, is in the business of repealing reverse discrimination or affirmative action. In New York, affirmative action in the Democratic Party is still a sacred subject, holy writ. Welfare reform hasn't reached the Democratic Party here, not even so far as people are discussing it. Rudy Giuliani is imposing it, but he's imposing it almost by fiat and because a few moderate Democrats like Peter Vallone see the light. Alan Hevesy would be another. But this is a party that is really, really out of sync with where national politics are at, and unless it gets its act together, it's going to be hard to imagine.
I understand that Hevesy is intending to run because Giuliani will have a two-term limitation. And Hevesy might be a pretty good candidate.
Hevesy's an interesting candidate, and he represents the kind of voice of moderation which has to come to bespeak the Democratic.
Eric, we're out of time. Fearless predictions from Eric Breindel. Rudy Giuliani will win the election.